Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Board of Fire Commissioners special meeting. Today is Tuesday, December 21st. And it's 9 a.m. And we welcome everybody who's here, who hears my voice, and hope that you're well and ready for the meeting. Ms. Gomez, I heard that the recording is on, so can we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Woods Gray?
Here.
Babcock? Hara?
Here.
Ibarra?
Here.
Ninberg?
Here.
Fire Chief Terrazas?
Here.
And Deputy City Attorney Lyndon Nguyen?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. And good morning, Fire Chief Terrazas. You're there. I don't see all the pictures because I don't have that. I should put that screen on instead. Trick guessing. Will you do the flag salute and the moment of silence, please?
Absolutely. Please stand, right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of past and present members of the Los Angeles City Fire Department who have devoted their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Ms. Gomez, would you go explain the rules for the meeting at this time?
Persons may listen to this meeting live by dialing any of the telephone numbers listed on the cover of the agenda for this meeting. Should you dial one of these numbers, you will be able to listen to the meeting, but will not be able to give public comment during the meeting. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Fire Commissioners on any item on the agenda or to provide general public comment should call 1-669-900-9128. When you are asked for a meeting ID, please enter 82241-906351 followed by the pound sign. Then press pound sign again to continue. You will then be joined into the meeting. To alert the board that you want to give public comment, press *9. You will be called on by board staff who may refer to you using the last 3 digits of the phone number you are calling from. When unmuted by staff, press *6 and please state your name. As a general reminder, public comment will be limited to 1 minute per agenda item, up to 2 minutes allowed for agenda items. At the request of the speaker will be afforded an additional 1 minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total per speaker. Time cannot be ceded to another speaker, and an individual may speak only once during the public comment period. Only those who are in the queue when the President begins the public comment section of the agenda will be allowed to speak. These instructions may also be found on the front page of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. We're at item number 1, Commissioner's comments. And first of all, I'd like to offer my condolences to the family of Captain William James. It's very sad when we lose a firefighter who's in service. It's sad to lose one at any rate, but one who's a working firefighter. And we wish them the best. Also, I know we've been in this COVID for a very long time. It seems like forever, but I've grown accustomed to it now. But I just know that there are other people who feel like it's not that way. So I encourage everyone in the fire department and who's listening to remember that we are still in a crisis time. The pandemic is still going on, and it's actually recreating itself. Seems like every few months we have a new variant out. So I hope that everyone will continue to use the safety plans that the fire department, Chief Terrazas and his staff has put in place, and especially wearing masks and washing and all of the things that that have been put out by the CDC. It's really important that we remember that we still have a problem and we really need to stay safe. It's just, I know it's draining because it's that way, but we are in it for the long haul and we will get through this. I know that we will. And thank you for all that you are doing to the men and women of the fire department. We really appreciate your service. The community counts on you, and we are happy from the many things that you have been doing. And especially to the fire department, thank you for the in-home service support that you provided for shut-ins, because there's so many people who are shut in. They don't have cars. They don't have, they can't get around very good. They're older people. And the COVID vaccination, we're finding out, is not the only thing that they need. There's a lot of other needs for those same people. But thank you for extending yourself. And with the need for testing, we may need to go back to doing more testing, it seems. I know Dr. Hart closed down his testing site, but looks like there's an increased need for it all of a sudden. Okay, very good. Thank you very much to everyone. Thanks to all the commissioners for showing up on the holiday week. Are there comments from other commissioners?
This is Dr. Hara, Commissioner Hara.
Good morning.
Happy holidays. And again, I'd like to add my condolences to the family of Captain James. And I, on the Thursday after the last commission meeting, I attended the Deloitte meeting on the current state organization and training assessment, where the focus was really on, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And again, I think the study that they conducted was important and very informative, and I'm sure our department will act upon their findings.
Thank you. Are there other comments from other commissioners? I see hands, but those are public speakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there any other commissioners who would like to speak? Okay. Then hearing no one, we'll move on to the report of the fire chief, item number 2 on the agenda. Fire Chief Terrazas, welcome.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have one event to report on. On December 7th and 8th, I traveled to Sacramento for an in-person fire scope meeting to talk to Cal OES and other fire departments throughout the state. The two main topics were how do we work together more effectively for state master mutual aid in terms of brush fires. And the second topic was how can we improve upon the staffing challenges that fire departments across the state are experiencing right now. I left the meeting with, we've had good dialogue. There was no solutions on that day, but we do have some projects that we'll be collaborating with in the future. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Item number 3, public comment. Ms. Gomez, do we have public comment? I think I see hands. I see 4 at least.
Yes, I see 4 hands. The first number is 403. The last number is 575. I'll request to unmute. Oh, another number just came on. 253.
Are you ready for 403?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm calling about item 6B, and I would like a little bit more than 2 minutes.
Is it only one agenda item? Is it only one agenda item? Okay, then you have 1 minute. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought I could ask for an extra minute. I'm like just slightly over a minute. My name is Libby. I called 2 weeks ago and noted that I was grateful that the LAFD was moving forward with the vaccine mandate. Now that the mandate is in effect, I'm calling in hopes that an update on firefighters' vaccine status will be forthcoming. As the Omicron variant is raging through the country and the city, I'm concerned that unvaccinated firefighters have remained on the force. We know from medical evidence that the vaccines plus boosters are a good protection against serious illness from the Omicron variant. It takes good judgment to follow that medical advice. I think those that don't follow that medical advice are showing us they don't have good judgment. I further think that it takes good judgment to uphold the excellence in the LA Fire Department. At this point, all those who have demonstrated they don't have good judgment should be removed from their position in the LAFD in order to protect us all. I'd also like to know how many firefighters for freedom remain on the force. They've made public statements that they will not be vaccinated. We should take them at their word and follow through on the department's promise to abide by the mandate and keep us as safe as possible. We should not be wasting our taxpayer dollars on people who are proving to us that they don't have the proper judgment to remain in the LAFD. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Speaker ending in 108.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
I'd like to speak on agenda items 6A and 6B, general public comment, please.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Chris Larson. I'm president of Los Angeles Women in the Fire Service. Good morning, Chief Terrazas, President Woods Gray, Vice President Hara, commissioners, command staff. I'd like to make sure that as we move forward with this organizational assessment, regardless of what happens with the members who are in or not in compliance with the vaccine mandate, the report states that we have a lot of work to do. But the report also is the members, both sworn and civilian, who have spoken and made their wishes known to this department. We've had more organizational assessments than I care to count, and we put no actionable items behind them. This is our one chance to get this right for the success of this organization going forward. If we fail to address the items in this organizational assessment and don't take action, we are not going to be able to move this department forward the way it should. So I call on the commissioners and the fire chief to make sure that we put actionable items behind the recommendations in this organizational assessment so that we can truly say that we are the best fire department in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Number ending in 706. Number ending in 706. I've requested twice to unmute. Please press *6. I'll go on to the next number and we'll come back to you. Number ending in 575. I've asked to unmute. Please. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you. My name is Michelle. I'm calling from Northridge, and I would like to talk about 6A, 6B public comment.
I'm sorry. Are you speaking on general public comment or a specific agenda item?
6A, 6B, and general public comment.
Very well. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm very concerned about the firefighters who do not want to get vaccinated. They're putting our city and our citizens at risk in our communities. The new variant is really, really, really transmittable, and I know many people that are already getting breakthrough infections. Anybody who is not vaccinated, like children or maybe elderly that are unable to get vaccinated, this is a life or death situation. So it is very concerning to me. The other part of my comment is the organizational assessment study, which was horrific in my view and very upsetting. It makes me not trust the fire department at all. It makes me almost think that they're worse than the police, if that's possible. And I want to be able to trust my, fire department, police department, all of that, but I just have no confidence at all in the way that they're acting with the vaccines and the toxic environment, sexism, racism. I mean, that organizational assessment was eye-popping and horrible. So I would like for the chief to try and do the right thing. If you do care about your department at all, and investigate those who have been so egregious and reprimand them as the law requires or as needed. If you care about your environment and your staff, will do these things. If you don't, you're showing a tremendous amount of male toxicity, entitlement, and it's gross. We're not in middle school. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Number ending in 253. I've requested you unmute. Good morning. Please state your name.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please state your name, the item you'll be speaking to, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, my name is Robert Hawkins. I wish to speak on public comment, item 6A and item 6B.
Very well. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. First, I would like to say good morning, Madam President. Good morning to all the fire commissioners, the fire chief, the command staff, and everyone in attendance. My name is Robert Hawkins, and I serve as the Executive Vice President for the Centurion. Today, I'm here to first offer my condolences to engineer Bill James, who we called Wild Bill. I had the pleasure of working with Bill James at Fire Station 64 years ago, and I worked at that particular fire station at a time where diversity was embraced. The doors were kept open, and we were under the strong command of Captain Armando Hogan, Captain Roy Harvey, and Captain Tamara Chick. That I tell that story because that has been a particular special point in my career where I will never forget. I felt like I was accepted as a African American firefighter, and I want to tie this story into this Deloitte study. The Deloitte study was very shocking. Well, not shocking, but very. It tells the truth about how this department
validated.
Validated, yes.
Sorry.
One thing I want to point out in the Deloitte study is the percentage of African Americans who selected a perceived discrimination at a significant higher rate than any other ethnic group. That is telling us that there's a problem in this department, that inclusion has to be and diversity has to be embraced and not just accepted. You know, we have the opportunity to make a difference. And I'm asking on this commission, I'm asking on the fire department and the mayor of Los Angeles to take this study serious and let's make change together. The Centurions organization will continue to work with the city, the fire department, and the fire commissioners to make this happen. Thank you. That's all my comments.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, Freddie Escobar, general comment, public comment, and agenda item 6A, 6B.
You have 3 minutes.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I would like to start off with wishing everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah. And I'm Freddie Escobar, President of the United Firefighters of Los Angeles City, representing over 3,400 brothers and sisters of the great LAFD. As I've already stated in previous Fire Commission meetings, the organizational and training assessment covered many topics, but one of the key findings confirmed that the heavy workload and staffing crisis are the primary source of conflict on the job for our firefighters. Even before the pandemic, the LAFD has been the most understaffed big city fire department in the nation. The staffing shortage, combined with the impact of the city vaccine mandate, has created the perfect storm in the LAFD and is significantly impacting our ability to serve the public, even worse than the brownouts in 2008. We have been forced to close resources, and the strain of our firefighters have never been greater. No more than ever, we need to keep the experienced, dedicated firefighters as we add the additional bodies that are needed to serve Los Angeles. Over 84% of the LAFD personnel are currently fully vaccinated, which is higher rate than any of other city of Los Angeles, which is a higher rate than the city of Los Angeles. I'm vaccinated, I believe in the science, but we simply can't afford to lose any current firefighters due to this mandate. The problem will get worse if we lose more firefighters to unexpected early retirement, suspensions, or terminations. The assessment also provided feedback about harassment within the city department. Once again, let me be very clear on this. UFLAC doesn't condone any form of harassment or bullying. Let me also say, as a Latino and a 32-year veteran of this department, Chief Terrazas doesn't tolerate any discrimination or harassment in the LAFD or his command staff. UFLAC has always been committed to achieving a more equitable fire department and will continue to work with our employee groups to do that, just that. I'm grateful for the men and women of our department, and I still hope that we can find a way to avoid terminating firefighters who have served Los Angeles with dedication for so many years. Thank you very much for your time, and again, happy holidays to all.
Madam Chair, the number that we were having difficulty connecting with, ending in 403, I've requested that you unmute.
Hello?
Hi, good morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state the information, the numbers you'll be speaking to.
I'll be 6A and 6B.
Okay, you have 2 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to, I don't know how Escobar can actually say that he believes that Chief Terrazas doesn't tolerate discrimination and harassment when, per this Deloitte organizational study, over 56% of women on the workforce believe that they have been bullied and harassed. That only 14% trust in their leadership and believe that their leadership is actually transparent. Yes, are they having a staffing crisis? Absolutely. Do they need to make sure that their fire engines are staffed? Absolutely. There are ways to do that with standards of coverage with less people. Tell me, whose life is it worth to have somebody give them coronavirus and to pass away? Allegations of Mayor Garcetti being in bed with the union obviously are true, because who in their right mind would stand behind somebody where over 56% of women firefighters feel bullied and harassed? As we heard from Captain Hawkins as well, the black firefighters are feeling the same thing. So you cannot say that this is not going on in the LAFD and that Terrazas isn't tolerating. He absolutely is tolerating, and he's upholding it and doing nothing about it. When are the commissioners going to act on this finding? When is Mayor Garcetti, if he truly believes on standing on a platform that uplifts underrepresented groups, especially women and black firefighters in the workplace, you have to recognize this abject failure in leadership and demand a change. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Is that the last? That was the last one, or was it?
There's one person that just came on, but it was after the comments had began. So would you like to hear their comments? 514.
I thought you were cutting him off after.
Excuse me 1 minute, please. She asked me a question. Thank you. We need to follow our rules that we've already explained to everyone. And so therefore, the person who just came on, although we let Freddie speak because he was the last one, and he came on a little later, but that was the last one. So that we won't take the other speaker because the rule said they had needed to be on by the time we began public speaking. Okay, we're going to move the agenda. We're moving on to item number 4, the determination of the government code, section 54953E1. Is there a motion? A discussion?
Hi, this is Deputy City Attorney Linda Nguyen. I just want to remind the board that the last determination was made at the meeting held on December 7th. So that determination is good for 30 days. It'll take the board out to January 7th. The first meeting in 2022 is January 4th. So the board can make a determination on January 4th, which would be good until February 4th. But if the board doesn't meet on January 4th, the board would need to have a special meeting just to make that determination should the board want to continue to have these virtual meetings.
I think we need to vote today so that we don't take anything for granted and we don't have to have a special meeting.
Thank you.
So that it extends the time into the month or within the 30 days.
I make a motion to continue the virtual meetings for another 30 days.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we continue with the virtual meetings as stated in item 4A. Ms. Gomez, can you roll call, please?
Woods Gray.
Aye.
Babcock.
Yes.
Hara.
Aye.
Ibarra.
Aye.
Ninberg.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 5, the consent agenda. Is there a question about any of the items? If not, a motion is in order to accept these items, receive and file, or send to the mayor's office, or whatever the action is. Are there any comments or concerns about any of the items? I don't see any hands. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through E.
Very good. Is there as a second? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda items 5A through E. Ms. Gomez, could you do a roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm sorry. My chat keeps dinging on me. I didn't hear who the second was. Ibarra?
I think it was Commissioner Ibarra.
Babcock.
No, it wasn't.
No, Babcock made the motion. And
Babcock made the second and Ninberg made the motion.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's just when I have my chat on, every time somebody sends something, it keeps dinging in and I can't hear what you're saying. So I'm good.
Very good. I'm glad you cleared that up because I didn't hear it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
And then we have Woods Gray.
Aye.
Babcock.
Yes.
Hara.
Aye.
Ibarra.
Yes.
And Ninberg.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Now moving on to item 6, the regular agenda items. We have A, and Chief Gutierrez, I understand you're doing item A. Welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Madam President.
Good morning.
Vice President Hara, all commissioners, happy holidays. Chief Terrazas.
Thank you.
And City Attorney. My name is Stephen Gutierrez, Deputy Chief, Training and Support Bureau. This morning before you have Board Report File Number 21-126, which is entitled Los Angeles Fire Department Organizational and Training Assessment. As directed by the Board of Fire Commissioners, the Los Angeles Fire Department is providing a report back on the organizational and training assessment currently being conducted by Deloitte Consulting LLP. This update provides the current state findings of the organizational and training assessment and also includes the assessment work group team broken down by ethnicity and gender. Recommendation is to receive and file. In accordance with the Board of Fire Commissioners' request, relative to the status of the organization and training assessment, Deloitte Consulting LLP has completed the current state findings of the organizational training assessment effective November 12, 2021. You'll find the actual findings report attached to the document. As part of a continuous journey to create a more effective and equitable department, the LAFD has partnered with Deloitte Consulting LLP to conduct an objective organizational and training assessment. The assessment seeks to, 1, strengthen the LAFD's organization structure to meet the needs of today. 2, prepare LAFD's organizational structure to meet the needs of tomorrow. And 3, build upon progress and focus action-oriented recommendations to continue the momentum. Deloitte Consultants have recently completed the current state findings, and the state findings consist of the following. 1, 4 key areas of strength. 2, 8 areas requiring focus. And 3, 9 areas requiring immediate attention. The assessment consists of both quantitative and qualitative data in the form of interviews. 24 one-on-one interviews were conducted. Focus groups, 20 focus groups comprised of 81 participants. And an all-employee confidential survey, which 34% of the department participated, both sworn and civilian, equating to 1,246 participants, as well as 847 free responses. Next, Deloitte will provide recommendations through work group meetings to attain acceptance and knowledge. We are currently working through that now, which is the recommendations and providing a roadmap to actually execute these recommendations. At the end of the project, a detailed strategy and roadmap will be provided outlining a clear set of actions and changes required for the LAFD to be a stronger organization. The assessment project work group team consists of Deloitte Consulting members, representatives from the Mayor's Office of Public Safety, Board of Fire Commissioners, as well as representatives in a work group which is comprised of all department stakeholders to include United Firefighters of Los Angeles, Chief Officers Association, Los Angeles Women in the Fire Service, Stentorians, and Los Bomberos. The project work group team's objective is to serve as advocates to ensure transparency, equity, and provide input to the Deloitte team. If you look at the board report, there is a breakdown of the ethnicity and gender of all members in the work group. However, if you'll note, additional members from the Mayor's Office of Public Safety also participated in the work groups, which were not included in the breakdown. If you look at the chart, it's 9 Hispanics, 5 African Americans, 2 Caucasians, and 4 APIs. In conclusion, the LAFD is committed to collaborating with all stakeholder partners in completing the organizational and training assessment. The organizational and training assessment will create a detailed strategy that will provide a roadmap to the LAFD with clear actions and changes required to strengthen and shape our workforce needs and experiences as a collective goal of enhancing the work experience for all LAFD members. If you'll note, the actual findings or current state is actually an attachment. And I'd like to go through some of it. Madam President, I'm not sure how detailed you'd like me to go, but I'd like to go through some of it and then also avail myself for any questions accordingly.
Well, let's use your judgment, and then the commissioners can ask questions because we have the report.
Yes, ma'am.
But you can hit the highlights and the important parts that you think, and we'll get to see how you use your judgment in sharing a fair report. Thank you, Chief.
Okay. So what I'd like to do quickly is look at page 4, and if you'll look at that, that's the assessment results, and this basically outlines those areas I alluded to earlier. Those are the 4 key areas of strength, the 8 areas that require focus, and of course the other 4 key areas of strength, 9 areas requiring focus, and 8 requiring immediate attention. And if you look at this graph and how it's organized, you have the pillars, the framework pillars, which are people, organization, well-being, work, learning and development, technology. Surrounding those, accordingly, are levers. And those levers are all areas which intersect in and around those pillars. That's kind of how the methodology of how this assessment worked, both through a quantitative analysis, which was the actual survey, and qualitative, with that being the interviews and the focus groups. If you go to the following page, page 5, and accordingly through 5 through 7 are some themes. And some of those themes are what the assessment pulled out, both qualitative and quantitative. There was a strong sense of teaming, in which 81% of the survey response were favorable towards they enjoy working as a team. 4 areas primarily of conflict. Number 1 being heavy workloads, poor leadership, stress, personality classes. Members perceive inequitabilities. There's a 19% favorability towards senior leaders' actions matching their words. Members having a sense of pride in the organization, very high, 82%, favorable towards the work I do is meaningful. Staffing programs that impact sworn groups more than others. 87% of sworn members indicate the assign, hire, and recall program directly affected them. Moving on to the following page of themes. Members feel disconnected and have a low trust in senior leadership. Trust in leadership, if you look at the graph, the corresponding graph, 40% survey response indicated favorability of transparency and honesty. Qualitative data indicates lack of accountability for trust. Well-being exists, but more can be done. 28% survey response favorable towards my organization has a genuine interest in my health. Members seeking more learning opportunities and development. 35% response organization, quote, my organization invests in my training and development. The quantitative census among members is that a need for soft skills to mitigate conflict, improve coordination, collaboration. Members seeking more feedback and transparency. 48% favorable response, excited about the career path rather. Page 7, support frontline management, the organizational strength. 81% of the survey response favorable to I have a positive working relationship with my manager. Not all members experience psychological safety. Survey suggests employees have different experiences and the ability to share opinions. 56% of civilian survey participants are favorable, feel comfortable sharing. However, sworn 49%. Sworn females continue to perceive higher discrimination and bullying. 56% selected bullying harassment. Sworn, as opposed to sworn males at 19%. And then moving through that as well, sworn females indicate less favorability to feeling comfortable to share opinions. 38% compared to civilians, females at 65%. Challenges around inclusion, 36% favorable LAFDs committed to achieving equality based on core values. African Americans, 47%, and Indian Alaskan Natives, 43%, perceive discrimination as a statistical significance. Qualitative feedback suggests different employees' demographic groups have some different experiences around inclusion. Civilians did share similar feelings and quote, feeling as second-class citizens. It doesn't give a percentage on that. Those are just some of the themes across that. Next, it goes into some highlights where it gives some data, which starts on page 9. Talks about the scorecard in those 6 areas. You'll see the percentages accordingly. Moving on through page 11, which is still highlight 1. And this gives a breakdown among the 6 themes and the 21 attributes. And it gives the questions that were asked in those specific areas, and then the percentages accordingly towards favorability. Page 12 goes to high and low survey favorability. Again, it speaks to those areas that were being assessed across the 5 of the 6 pillars and gives a favorability rating towards them and actually color codes those. Highlight 3 is well-being. This is a qualitative data, both sworn and civilian. It's consistent in terms of well-being programs across both groups, sworn and civilian. And indicates less than half LAFT believe there's a fair, inclusive, and diverse work environment. Breaks out percentages in the 4 quadrants: culture and recognition, flexibility at work, fair and inclusive, diverse work environment, humanistic work environment. Highlight 4, trust. Again, it breaks down on the right. You'll note that it does break down most selected reasons. Heavy workloads being the highest at 77%. Personality classes at 56%, along with stress at 56%, and poor leadership at 67%. Highlight 5 in the learning and development. Again, this is around that main pillar, in which is surrounded by the levers of training, career progression, career mobility, design, flexibility, and accessible tools. In the training quadrant, which is area of focus, it does highlight a sense of pride among sworn in the technical trainings offered by the LAFD. However, low favorability and feeling that the LAFD makes investment in training and development for the employees, 35%. Civilians, there was a lack of effective technical training for their roles. The survey shows civilians, 51% respond less favorable towards having training and on-the-job support rather than sworn at 65%. Soft skills training, although the Leadership Academy is available, clearly indicates that the need for soft skills training, primarily for supervisors above. Training methods and materials. Common feedback was that some of the materials being delivered need to be updated. Access and training for civilians. Again, the civilians feel that they need to be more inclusive to more training. Area requiring attention is career progression. Lack of performance, robust performance management and review. Indicate performance management process are limited to checking the box and not accompanied by coaching or conversations or actual development feedback. Developing practices for career progression. Both sworn and civilian members show perceived lack of understanding about requirements and what factors are considered for promotion. Objectivity in promotional process. Feedback heard from sworn indicated that certain levels. Give an example is Captain 2. Written tests are not standardized. Panel discussions around promotions lack objective measurement, which allows biases in the process. And then it gets into the actual overview of the assessment, which again, as I mentioned earlier, 24 interviews, 20 focus groups, 1,246 participants in the survey, and then they reviewed over 100 documents that were provided to them, both governance, guidance documents, policy documents. Some of the assumptions that were taken into this, it did go and look at all the data, provided anonymity and confidentiality. It did classify it, green indicating area of strength, yellow indicating area of focus, and red indicating an area requiring attention. Other assumptions as it goes through, distributed over a 13-day period from September 8th through September 20th. As I mentioned previously, 34% response rate, which meant approximately 1 in every 3 member, both sworn and civilian, participated in the survey. Sampling threshold was set at 10, which that meant that if there was a topic that basically was discovered by more than 10 participants and it was highlighted and noted, if it fell below that threshold, it wasn't put into the data collection, or wasn't put into the analysis. Demographic questions were optional, so members did not have to state specifically to the demographics. They did have a box that said prefer not to disclose. However, that information was still used in the analysis. There were 5 custom questions that were included. And also to note, the COVID-19 vaccine mandate went into effect after the survey closed. The survey was conducted and closed before the COVID-19 mandate went into effect in the city of LA. However, the mandate was under consideration while the survey was open. And there were questions or input rather in and around the mandate, but it did fall below the sampling threshold, which I previously mentioned was set at 10. The methodology we talked about already briefly, the data collection, surveys, interviews, and focus groups. And of course, we mentioned there was actually 6 pillars, which the 6th pillar was technology, which was not assessed. If we quickly go through the demographics, and this would be on page 23. It's a summary of the interviews and focus groups. So this would be the qualitative data. If you look at the graph, there is a total workforce percentage and the percentage of interviews and focus group percentages. It gives the breakout, both sworn and civilian, both male and female, ethnicity and gender throughout. You can take a look at that. Of course, it also breaks out a survey, demographics as well as where people where they worked, where they were assigned. And then it gets into the report itself. What I would just highlight in the first page on page 26, it gives an overlay of how to kind of understand it and read the survey. And you can look and follow along on that where, like I mentioned previously, there's levers that and attributes that surround the main pillars. There's summary of observations. There's also what they heard, which are actual quotes taken from the interviews or focus groups. And then finally, which is probably the most important thing, was the strength and consideration areas. So what I'd like to do real quickly is just go to the strength and consideration areas for each pillar. I think those are important, and that would be starting on work, which is a strength and area of consideration, page 32. So strengths, I think these are really important. Employees have a high sense of connection to the LAFD's purpose and mission. Employees remain at LAFD because they're invested in serving their communities. Across all levels and jobs, there's a high pride in being part of the organization. And finally, employees describe having clarity around what success looks like in their roles. So if you look at the considerations, number one, interactions between sworn and civilian employees to augment mutual respect, understanding, efficiency, and productivity. 2, consideration of dispatch protocols to identify potential areas where staff can be alleviated to manage associated shortages and heavy workloads impacting their workforce. 3, administrative bottlenecks, a better understanding of bottlenecks and their impact on the organization's effectiveness. 4, transparency, enable non-management employees to better understand staffing and budget processes. Transparency should include consistent communications to members. So when you look at these, and it's a very important slide in each one of these pillars, it clearly gives the strengths of all AFD members, both sworn and civilian, and then the considerations, which, and taken from these considerations where these recommendations will come in. So it gives I'm trying to provide us a better understanding of how to go through the analysis itself. If we go through, next one being people, and that would be, on page 39. Again, people, strength and areas of consideration. Strengths, LAFD members have strong positive sentiment around teaming and forming camaraderie and working together. Involved and effective managers build trust within teams and enhance feelings of well-being and care. And finally, members who receive mentorship and coaching are committed to paying it forward to newer members. And of course, considerations, number 1, zero tolerance for discrimination. The need to enforce organizational policies and discrimination, communicate what it means for members at LAFD, and determine who is accountable for upholding its application. 2, utilize neutral/objective resources for internal investigations. There are 4 perceptions of lack of neutrality and holding all members equally accountable. 3, strengthen strategic communication. There's a need for strategic communication methods around vision, mission, and organization-wide announcements. Using the right channels will also help promote transparency and support a culture of trust. 4, provide actionable feedback in performance management promotional cycles. Employees lack actionable feedback following performance and promotional cycles to understand how to better manage their career growth. And 5, integrate mentorship and coaching into performance management. Mentorship and coaching are not formalized or integrated into expectations and performance reviews for those in management positions. By integrating it, LAFD can expect more formal mentorship and coaching to occur. And so also going into organization, I'll highlight that as well, highlighting the strengths and the considerations, which I feel are important. That would be found on page 44. Under organization, past years have yielded increase in diverse recruits and promotions to leadership positions. The core values of the LFD personally resonate with employees across civilian and sworn populations. Consideration, number one, increased connection between senior leaders and LAFD members. Employees seek transparency and honesty. They want to hear directly from the fire chief and command staff around important and relevant matters, prevalent matters. Two, systematic approach to DEI. Consider a systematic approach to access and engage a more diverse workforce, build inclusive leadership capabilities, foster an inclusive culture, and embed equity and inclusion across every bureau. And three, adaptability. Members seek opportunity to share ideas with LAFD to enhance and improve organizational adaptability. We'll quickly go to well-being. That will be accordingly on page 49. Area of strength. Sworn members at LAFD feel they are fairly and well compensated. Mental health resources are available to LAFD, and most are aware of the avenues to utilize these resources if needed. Number one, strengthen psychological safety through measures such as conversations that make employees feel heard and anonymous feedback channels. Concerns around psychological safety may be addressed. Two, show gratitude. There's an opportunity to more frequently express gratitude for employees that can increase morale. Three, reiterate time off policies. Providing guidance around appropriate approaches in taking time off and off work may lead to appropriate usage of time off policies that could lead to members feeling recharged. Four, celebrate civilian promotions. Civilians express a desire for the promotion to be celebrated in the same way as sworn promotions are. And five, availability of mental health resources. Members expressed a need for additional psychologists to increase accessibility to help at a time if needed. And we'll quickly go to learning and development. That would be found accordingly on page 54. Strengths. Development of critical conversations, training program, and leadership academy. First year as a probationary member yields high learning and development opportunities, mentorship, and hands-on training. So as a consideration, number one, opportunities for mentorship. Mentorship is not sustained after probationary period, leading to poor perception around career mobility, progressive support, and leadership development. Two, objectivity and promotional process. A need for objective and formal promotional process to decrease perceptions of bias and create objective, behavioral, and technical measures for promotions. And three, evaluate training materials and learning opportunities. Desire for training materials and expanded access to learning and development opportunities that address conflict mitigation, DEI, compassionate leadership, and hands-on rank and level specific job training. And then finally, as I mentioned previously, the sixth pillar, which is technology, was not assessed. It was used in some quantitative data, but not qualitative data. And then what I'd like to do is just quickly go to near the end and say that page in a second. I apologize. It would be, and it's part of the appendices, and that would be on page 99. So if you look at 99, it gives the overall assessment results, where again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, identifies 4 key areas of strength along with the 8 areas that require focus moving forward, along the additional 9 highly rated important or areas requiring attention. As you look through this, it basically lays out those areas in which the department is going to look through these recommendations, this roadmap, and implement. The department is really leaning forward and utilizing this assessment effectively, not only for today but tomorrow. As I mentioned in my board report, I feel it is important that we look at this, we analyze it, and we use it in order for the department to actually foster forward. So that concludes my report. I hope that helped kind of go through it, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Gutierrez. That was a very the report. I like the way they put it together, and there's lots of information there, but I like the way they put it together to give us that information. I particularly like the quotes that I hear from people who were participating in the process, some of the statements that they made, because we couldn't all be in all the same place, all the different meetings at the same time. But I think that
I will add that in light of this report, and even before that, the department is already proactively looking at even development of a specific bureau, that being a Human Resource or Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Bureau to encompass, and it will be essentially the framework to help execute these recommendations and the roadmap. So we're already seeking funding and looking at that to really be a model for the rest of the city, and really, quite frankly, for the rest of the fire service throughout the nation. So taking this report very serious, slow and deliberate, and really closely looking at the recommendations once they're unfolded, and then how to properly execute them over time.
Very good. Are there any questions or concerns from commissioners? And I can see that some of the items that are in the report are already in the budget. So that's a good start.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Commissioner Burke, I see your picture.
Good morning. Happy holidays, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chief, for delivering the very thorough report. I do want to commend the mayor's office and the department for conducting a thorough assessment, and it seems fairly honest, and I am pleasantly surprised to see it. And I was, even seeing quotes like this, which is not common for this department, where they were willing to print this, which I thought was really great, and publish it, says, "I have 2 daughters in college. There is no way that I would ever let them consider working for the LAFD. It's based on a misogynistic mindset. No leadership has ever done anything to address this," on page 43. And I want to commend the department for being open and transparent and publishing this assessment. It took a lot of courage to do that. And I know that, and 56% of sworn females selected bullying and harassment, perceived discrimination as sources of conflict, as compared to sworn males at 19%. This is really important. And this is how we can actually, by taking honest assessments, this is actually how we can begin to deliver change. And I know that Chief Larson had also mentioned in her comments as well that, there have been many assessments done. And the culture is still, they've got massive issues of discrimination, harassment, abuse, transparency, and whatnot. I do want to say that there was, I have a couple of questions. So it's all going to be about implementation. It's all going to be about how much authority this new DEI bureau is going to have going forward. And I'm concerned, looking at your report, Chief Gutierrez, thank you for putting in the numbers of the diversity and that are on the work group team breakdown on page 2 of your report. My concern is you've got 10% of sworn females that have trust in leadership. Let's see, where is it? It is here. It's so great. There's so much data, which is fantastic. It is 10% on page 85, 10% have favorability compared to their male counterparts of 12% in transparency and honesty across employees in the department. So if you've got, and we see that discrimination is the highest perceived, but also as we see in African Americans, we only have 2 sworn females on the work group breakdown. So you have 6 females total and 14 males total, which seems problematic already, and 12 sworn males and 2 sworn females. So I think if we're really looking at creating inclusive environments, especially when you've got 38% of the women compared to, I don't know what it is, compared 49% of men feel like they can share their opinions. Women are less likely to share their opinions in groups, especially when they're outnumbered. My biggest concern, especially when Nuri Martinez funded this assessment, that she said we'd like it directed by the women, that when you've got less than half of the people that are on the work group team are females and only 2 sworn compared to 12 sworn males, I think that's problematic.
So that work group, or that work team, I would call it, those were comprised of all department stakeholders. Okay, now the stakeholders were all told they could bring, this is Deloitte's basically ground rules, is they could bring 2 people into the work group. So the department didn't have a hand in selecting who was going to be in that work group, just basically essentially went to the stakeholders and said, Deloitte's asking for 2 people to participate. So Deloitte was the one communicating and collaborating all that within that work group to help basically just provide, as I wrote there, transparency and provide input as it went through the weekly meetings. It was the department as a whole that was assessed. Over 1,200 people participated in the survey, and Deloitte it basically navigated through all that. So I understand what you're, in terms of what you're identifying in that graph, 7 females. However,
it's 6 females and 14 males.
I believe it's 7, but that's fine.
Oh. You mean on page 2?
Yes.
Okay.
But
okay.
But
either way, it's 7. Yes, it's
no.
It's,
I hope that answers your question. In that, in selecting that work group, the department didn't have a hand in it. That was the
mayor's office?
There was the stakeholders that provided those individuals to that work group.
So was it the mayor's office that, because the mayor, this is directed out of the mayor's office, correct?
Correct. The stakeholders were asked
to
provide individuals in the work group.
Right.
So they could select male, female, any ethnicity they would like to participate in that work group. And this is just the kind of the breakdown what was provided.
So this is, that's what I'm saying. I think that, I think we have a problem here, because especially when Nuri Martinez said she wanted this, I just want to make sure that we've got those, the canaries in the coal mine, those that are experiencing the highest rates of harassment and abuse, have a seat at the table and can help direct what the solutions are. So it sounds like this is a mayor's office issue, because I know that even in his hearing, the mayor said that he has a 0 tolerance for harassment. I just want to make sure that we are delivering and making sure that that we have everybody at the table.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the part that is missing here, or maybe the missing ingredient, may be that these are just the current state findings. Now, and you absolutely are correct 100% when you said the execution and what that looks like. That's a whole different piece to this. So once those recommendations and roadmap, and then the collaboration of all members, of all ethnicities, all genders are put together, and I don't even know what that looks like quite yet in terms of how this will go about and be executed, I think is the key. This group here was basically almost the same group that helped vet it and doing the selection of even getting Deloitte from beginning to end. Those same individuals brought that along. The actual study and the assessment itself is really Deloitte Consulting. The department really, it was really hands off. It was really their study, their questions, their analysis. All basically the department essentially did was help facilitate it to ensure that it got out, and that we got as much. It was very important to me personally to get as much participation as possible. So we really had our ear to the ground to really kind of understand what the workforce is hearing, seeing, and feeling.
Right, and
I think, Commissioner, as one of the people who participated with that group actually had the information that was collected has nothing to do with that group. The commission, the good thing about the study is that it reached out to everybody in the department, and people. That's where I think the important part is, that everyone really had a chance to provide input. But the group, that little group that was coming together with the stakeholder representatives, basically listened to reports from Deloitte. That's all we did. I was not in the part that picked the group, but I followed up after that because of the charter. But all we did was basically listen to Deloitte report back to us, and say, do you have other questions? Things like, I would say, well, are the commissioners going to be included in this survey? Are the commissioners going to be here? Are the commissioners? Basically, those are the kind of things we did. We really had no end results to the information that came out. Right. And so I really think that the important part is that I have to tell you that I was very impressed with Deloitte, because at first I didn't trust the idea that this was going to be a fair, equitable thing. But as I listened to them, as they redirected members of the stakeholder groups and controlled some of the things that they were saying, or not buying into some of the things that they were saying, I said, this group may be all right after all. And I think that probably we've got the best product that we could probably get.
Like I said, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the study was surprisingly objective, and I'm very happy. I'm very happy that it was made public. I think that's really important for this department moving forward, is making sure that we're as open and transparent. When you've got 14% of sworn who believe that leadership are open and transparent, this is the beginning of making that happen and building that trust. So I'm just saying, we've got to have some parity, I think, at the table. And
Well, I think that after this report came out, then if another group is formed, which I don't know that another group, group is almost has ended, right? Chief, aren't we finished?
I believe there's,
because we did the little group meetings, and we had a follow up to that. Is there another meeting for the group?
I believe there's another meeting, because they still haven't basically finalized recommendations and roadmap. Mm-hmm. So, but I think to your point, President, is that this group was really just the stakeholders providing a seat at the table to kind of answer and help Deloitte maybe their questions they may have, but really it wasn't in any way involved in the analysis or putting the analysis together or determining even, what kind of questions were going to be given to members, or it was mainly just to provide transparency and clarity in the process with Deloitte. And I agree with you. I was very impressed with Deloitte professionalism, and they're really truly objective in how they even went through meetings. and how they vetted information. We provided a lot of information to them. And like I mentioned in that very first report, that in providing, just mining that data and providing that information, the department became aware of a lot of guidance and information that was really necessary and needed within the organization. So this path or this process that we've been going through has been very informative for the department. I think it's going to be very instrumental moving forward through the recommendations and then the execution of them. And really, I think where you're going to is in that execution piece, right, where people come together. How are we going to execute? Is it going to be a collaborative effort? And I would say yes. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet. We're still kind of waiting for Deloitte to move to the next step.
Do you have a date on the roadmap?
No.
Okay. So we don't know when they're planning on delivering that?
We have a meeting, I believe, this week, and we'll get more information.
Okay, excellent. And I do have to say, I have also on page 9, there is in trust and leadership, there's a bit of, it's a little misleading. It says sworn at 28, civilian 53, male 30, female at 47. The problem is that the sworn female should actually be 10%. And that is, it's deeper in the data. And I think the sworn males are at 12%, not 12%, but total. It was that sworn females had the lowest favorable response rates across gender and employee type at 10% in leadership that invests in its people. So I think that as a survey scorecard, 47% of females is a little bit misleading, and especially because it should be broken out. There is such a disparity between, I think civilians are twice as, they trust in leadership twice as much as sworn. So, and then women even less. So I think that that's really important to note, especially because it's a survey scorecard. A lot of times people are going to read this and they're just going to look at the scorecard. And there's a lot of great data in there too, like at the beginning, but I just want to clarify for the record to make sure that that is, that gets remedied just in the scorecard.
I'll make a note of that in our next meeting. I'll bring that up with Deloitte, and just looking at it, and again, I'm no data scientist. I think I think what they may have done is just separated sworn from civilian, break that down, and then broke down male versus female.
Yeah, and
I believe in the overall data, more civilian female participated in different parts of it than sworn female.
Because there are so many more of them. I mean, I think we have like 3.5% female and sworn, and I don't know what it is. I think it's close to 50% in civilian. So, and then I also want to know, so, and actually, Chief Terrazas, what you think of the report, and what you think of the leadership scores.
Commissioner, I've been a proponent of the audit for the past few years. The department funded the audit. NURI is a supporter of the effort, but the department found the money to pay for it. So I believe that it's a great tool. It's not done yet. This is just the study. We're waiting for the recommendations. I do believe it's the right path to move forward on. I think it's a healthy sign for an organization to look at itself in the mirror and compare the baseline to future audits.
Excellent. And page 11 on the report, are you on there? My trust and leadership average, what are your thoughts on that, and what do you plan to do to address that as the leader of this organization?
Well, first thing, I want the study to be completed so I can see what the recommendations are from Deloitte. So I'm going to wait for the experts to weigh in, and then I'll evaluate the options.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and any initial thoughts on these?
Now, like I said, I'll wait for the recommendations to be forwarded, and we'll evaluate the options at that time.
Okay. So I was a little bit surprised at it, that the numbers were as low as they were. But I also do think that it is imperative that we rectify the trust. And I do think that getting this report, although I will say it was defunded multiple times, and I'm so glad it got funded and that it came out and it's open and transparent. I think that's imperative. And I was, 14% in transparency and honesty, 24% in inspiration, and 23% in continuous investment in people, and 26% in mission and purpose for trust and leadership. We need some work.
Commissioner,
I appreciate that we're open. I'm glad we're honest.
And Commissioner, I would like to move on to let someone else have a chance. And Commissioner Nimberg is following the other commissioners having a chance to speak. If you have other questions to come back, we'll come back to your comments.
Absolutely.
Let's share this platform for a few minutes.
Sure.
And I actually do agree with the chief in the fact that until the Lord gives us the final guidelines as to what they think we need to do, I think we have to wait on that, and I'm hoping I have some interest in that. Okay, Commissioner Ibarra.
Hi, thank you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. So first of all, I just want to echo everybody else's opinion about the thoroughness, the professionalism of Deloitte. I think part of, this has been a long time coming, this report. We've been talking about it for a really long time. There was a lot of concerns from a lot of people in the department that this be an absolutely impartial process. And I think, Deloitte is, a big, well-known organization. But even so, I was just really impressed with sort of the thoroughness. The fact that they listened very carefully and that they didn't mince words, and also just the lack of a political agenda that they had, and just reflecting to us the state of our agency. And that, they weren't beholden to any group or personal agenda. It was basically, they want to let us know where we are and how we can improve. So this is basically just a status report, but it's not yet the recommendations. And I think what all of us are looking forward to is, let's fix the problem. And that's why we brought them here. So this isn't by any means the end. This is just the beginning. But there's a couple of things that I feel like we should note, because we did know that we were in a very precarious situation. And I think part of how we knew that is just the staffing crisis that we've had. And we've had that during the entire time that we've been on this commission. And it's only gotten worse. It got worse during the pandemic. So all of us knew that doing this sort of survey, or doing this sort of assessment during a pandemic, where I sort of feel like I've had more difficult conversations with people in the department during the pandemic than I've ever had in my career. Which is, an 8-year career here in the commission. And that's part of the reason is because the pandemic has been so difficult. And it's been traumatic for everybody in the city. I think it's, for all of us, but I think especially for the people in our department, because they went to work at a time when most of us were staying home, and they were daily exposed to the virus. People got the virus, people were exposed to it, people had to stay home. So they've been, The media likes to talk about overtime, and we certainly do have a lot of overtime in this department. Part of it is because of wildfires, but also part of it was because people were exposed to the virus and they couldn't come to work, and other people needed to fill in. So the workload has been immense. It's been really difficult on our members, and so I do think that we need to acknowledge that. Even though I think most of our members love their work, it's been harder than it's ever been in the last couple of years. And, so I want to thank our members for doing the work during this difficult time, and also understand that that's part of what's sort of leading into a lot of the unhappiness that they're feeling in the department. I think the numbers that were most surprising to me, even though we knew we knew because it was part of what precipitated this report, was the numbers of the bullying and harassment that women feel on a daily basis. I don't think it's funny.
I'm not laughing. I wasn't actually surprised, because the other statistics.
Excuse me. I don't think that's not appropriate at this time.
So,
okay.
So
no,
I think
I didn't hear
anybody say any. I didn't hear anybody call your name. Actually, that's what I'm saying. Let the speaker continue, please.
So I think that's tragic. I mean, that I think if you ask women in the civilian workforce if they've ever experienced harassment, I think you're going to get something close to 95%. But that you continuously face bullying or harassment at 56%. That's surprising to me, because I do understand that women do face harassment in the workforce over the course of their career, but that they're feeling it now is very high, and that's something that we really need to look at. Same thing for African Americans. I think that in every survey of civilian workforce, it's a high threshold of people who are going to say that they've experienced discrimination. I mean, for Latinos as well, in the civilian workforce, during the course of their career, it's going to be a high number. So there's a little bit of nuance there that I want to tease out, like how does this compare to the rest of the civilian workforce? But I think there's no way that the number for women is going to be comparable to what you get in the civilian workforce. This is much higher. They're also like a severe minority in this institution, and in the fire service, and it's it's a stereotype, but it is more of a macho environment. So there are some cultural issues here that are specific to the fire service. And so we should look at that. The other thing that I'm sort of concerned about and thinking about is the civilians in our department. I think we need more civilians in our department. So, I mean, I'm just thinking about like who is available to support the senior leadership in the department. And it's just very few professional staff that they have to assist. I know that when Dacia left and she was Chief Terraz's, excellent executive assistant, it took a couple of years. I think she's been gone at least over a year. And so there's nobody to schedule Chief Terraz's, day. And now we've replaced, we replaced Dacia, but we still don't have somebody else to support that. So just the idea that you don't have any staff to be around and to help you, do the stuff the administrative work that needs to be done. I think that's significant. I also think we owe the civilians that are still in the department a great debt, because they do a lot of work, and they just spread it around because there isn't a whole lot of people. And that also leads into the issues that people have with discipline. We don't have enough civilian staff to assist with that sort of process. I think that this department is special because we pioneered bringing in a very professional disciplinary system to the fire service. We were the first department to do that over a decade ago. And many other fire departments today are sort of copying our system, but we developed it a long time ago. And there's been a lot of work that has been done when it comes to, disciplinary systems. And so we kind of need to go back and reevaluate that. And I do think that for people to have confidence, whether it's like they feel that chief officers get off easier than captains or than, non-officers in our department, they're never going to have that confidence unless we sort of do more work when it comes to the disciplinary system, or, to come forward and to know that they can, put in a complaint anonymously and that it's going to be anonymous. It's all of that is about how we control CTS, how we control who has access to CTS, and our disciplinary system. We have a good system. We developed it a long time ago. It needs more work. We need to think more about that. And then lastly, the other thing that is like a huge source of, A is politics also. That's been a source of contention in this department. And, the last 4 years, we've had a very interesting sort of national landscape. And that has also sort of polarized people in our department. And I think that we would be not honest if we didn't acknowledge that that is something that really changed sort of the discourse in our department. There's divisions. This is a very progressive city. It's a very democratic city. And when, there was the national, and the national presidential politics became really polarized during the last president, and people had uncomfortable opinions, and we didn't agree about them. And most of the commissioners didn't agree with a lot of our sworn members. That was a source of huge contention between us, between the people in our department. And so sort of learning to have an environment where everybody works together and everybody respects each other's opinion and, and sort of tries to keep politics away from the firehouse so that we can all work together in a cooperative way has been challenging. And it has been challenging for all of us because we're all, especially for all of our commissioners, because we're political people. Mm-hmm. That's why we're here. So sort of, the lack of just the fact that there is, a huge polarity between what, the commissioners believe and what the sworn members believe, because we're part of the leadership too. So their lack of confidence in leadership includes the commission. I get that. So all of us need to own that. Like, they have a very different opinion about us than, we do about us. So, and part of it is they don't agree with our politics. And then, so that leads into the other issue, which is vaccines. I think all of us on the commission have very strong opinions about vaccines. And I'm not one to apologize about that. But at the same time, it's been a very divisive issue for the members in our department. And that's also been a strong source of contention. I mean, I've never seen people in our department, I've never had such difficult conversations with people whom, I've worked with for a long time and I respect and I really like, but, we disagree about vaccines. And also the fact that, whether or not people are going to be fired. I mean, even people who are vaccinated and who were vaccinated as soon as they could be vaccinated are not happy about the fact that we're going to be perhaps terminating employees because they're not vaccinated. I think that, the council president made a really good point, which is that the point was never to fire people. We want them vaccinated. We don't want them fired. And I think that's true. But at the same time, I think that the people of the city of Los Angeles, expect that at a certain point, like, if you're not vaccinated, you can't really do this job. And I know that people disagree about that. That's the strong sentiment of the people of Los Angeles. That's been a very contentious issue, and that's really divided our department. It's very sad. I've never seen it be this bad, but it is what it is. And I also think that those sentiments are reflected in this report. You know, I think we just need to level with each other and just be honest that all of those things are happening. All of those things have been happening during these last 2 years. And we just need to rebuild and make it better. We need to just be honest about it, have difficult conversations with each other. We've had difficult conversations with each other offline. I know I have. And they just need to keep happening, you know, because in the end, we need to we all love this department. We all want to make it better. We all just need to come to terms with everything that's happened and figure out next steps. And I'm glad that Deloitte is here to help us do that. Thanks. You're muted.
Yes, I did. Now I have to also turn off my TV. Okay, very good. Are there other comments from other commissioners? One of the things that we did discuss at this meeting, that this team that we had did discuss more than one time, was the impact of the COVID ordinances on the results of the survey. So I don't know if they'll come out in their final report, but I think they came up with the idea that they felt it did not really, that it happened at a time that was before, they took the survey before the ordinance, so therefore that they didn't think it had as great an impact, and that there were fewer people who actually mentioned it when they did the survey at the beginning. But Chief Gutierrez, you might want to speak to that and more clarity.
Yes, in one of the assumptions, let me get to it real quick. The assumption, and part of their assumptions, I should say, on page 2 of 2, which is page 19, it does call out the COVID-19 vaccine, and it does specifically state, first of all, there was that sampling threshold, which a sampling threshold of 10 survey participants was implemented to preserve anonymity when analyzing demographic categories. That same threshold was used on multiple questions throughout. So in other words, for specific on the COVID-19 vaccine mandate, went into effect after the survey closed. The survey was conducted and closed before the COVID-19 vaccine mandate went into effect in the city of Los Angeles. However, the mandate was under consideration while the survey was open. An analysis of freehand responses was conducted, and comments mentioning the mandate fell below the sampling threshold for further analysis. So it was conducted while they were having discussions about the mandate, but it wasn't quite, the ordinance wasn't in effect then. But there was a fill-in box that was included in this was the quantitative analysis in the sample, or excuse me, in the survey. And they only had less than 10 people basically call out or identify anything having to do with COVID-19. So it wasn't involved in an analysis. So if it would make that threshold, let's say 11 people indicated that would have been came in and kind of fabricated into the analysis. So the one thing I will say is, and I think there's some great points in looking at this, and I think the department is, we are eagerly awaiting the recommendations and the roadmap. It is, and we are really looking forward to it as a springboard to actually, again, propel the department forward for the future. And there's been, we provided a lot of the past reports and analysis and studies that were done. This one was a lot more in depth, and this one had a lot more participation. So that being said, it is a valid report, a very professional consulting firm, Deloitte. The recommendations, we are eagerly awaiting and actually, involving all stakeholders and everyone in the department to have a hand in this so that we can implement these the right way, so that they live and they become part of the fabric of the organization. It's extremely important. So and all those other things that, and I can tell you, being a member of this organization, that there's even unknown factors because of everything that's been going on with the department for the last few years now. So it's a valid report. The department is serious about implementing the recommendations, and we'll be working with every member to ensure that these recommendations go in, they're meaningful, and they remain valid. And then we also will look in the future to even further analysis and further things to actually re-examine ourselves and self-reflect to see how we're going, to see how we're progressing. I think that's important as well. So there will be another report once the recommendations are finalized in the roadmap. I'll report back to the commission, and we'll have a further discussion on some of those things. And as I learn more, I did take note of the one statistic that Commissioner Nimber pointed out. I'll have that discussion with Deloitte as well in our next meeting. Maybe they can further define it so it's even further defined. But it's a good working document. The recommendations will be forthcoming. I believe they'll be valid and strong, and it'll be up to all of us, every member of the department, to ensure that they're implement it and execute it correctly. So.
And I'm happy to see that they covered the COVID issue in the report. So I think that that's well taken care of. Were there other commissioners who wanted to speak who had not had a chance to speak?
Actually, the only comment I make is, I think the report is great, and I was participatory in some of the stakeholder meetings, and just like Chief Terrazas, I'm looking forward to formal recommendations coming out of this report, and I defer any further comment until I see what those recommendations are.
I think, are there any other commissioners who would like to speak who have not spoken? Okay, I did say I would go back to Commissioner Nimberg if she had a comment or two more.
What? Just a comment. No, once again, thank you all. I appreciate this. Two things. When is this going to be funded annually as part of the DEI Bureau? Do you know? Is that in the works to make sure that we keep this as a baseline and then we move forward?
None of that has actually been formalized quite yet. However, that is a good recommendation that we do further analysis, again, just to see, if we're on target and reevaluate ourselves in all areas, not just this specific, but the department as a whole, and to ensure that, that, again, the idea here is that, we do value each and every member of the department, and we want to provide them a safe, comfortable place to come to work. They do an extraordinary job each and every day throughout all the things that are going on, the circumstances they've been under, extreme circumstances for the last couple of years. So again, the recommendations will take all of us to help implement. Everybody will have a hand in it and to understand where it's going and where we're going as an organization. Right. And I think, and like Chief Terrazas says, is really looking forward to these recommendations and, and then more importantly, the execution of them.
And when are they? So I know that we funded it, the DEI unit, and we got emergency funding. Do you know when that's going to stand up?
I don't have that answer, no, ma'am.
Okay.
So Commissioner,
they haven't approved the budgets yet, have they?
No, this is let me speak to that point. It's in progress. It's an interim budget request, but we haven't got an update yet. But we are working on it as we speak.
Okay. Do you know when we're expected to get word on that?
No, I don't. I'm awaiting probably after the holidays. It's hard to reach people right now.
Okay. It was like 1.2 million. I think 1.18, which was a good start for sure.
Well, it's 1.2 in next year's budget, and I'm told that the ask for the interim budget is around 600,000.
Okay, so is that separate or is it just pulled from that 1.2?
It's separate. It's this fiscal year. So it's just what we want to do is get people in place to start the effort to develop this new bureau so that next fiscal year we're ahead of the game instead of playing catch up.
Right.
So everything's in flux right now, but we are pursuing those monies.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And Yes, and I understand, as Commissioner Ibarra had mentioned, that we are in the middle of a pandemic, and things are extraordinarily difficult. They are, absolutely. However, I do also have to say that these numbers kind of reflect what surveys we've done in the past. And I just want to make sure that this time around that we are addressing it, and I really do believe that with Deloitte and with funding and with enough authority, this Bureau will actually be able to move the needle in this baseline. So thank you all.
I have one more thing.
Commissioner Ibarra.
Yes, so I forgot, one of the things that I wanted to ask is just, I think that we should check with Council President Martinez and ask her what her, because she's been mentioned a few times during the comments. And I think it's up to Councilmember Martinez to speak for herself and whether this meets with her expectations of what she wanted. She was one of many people, including Chief Terrazas and the former fire administrator, who together sort of came up with this idea when they met with the Women in Fire Service about having this. But certainly Councilmember Martinez is really instrumental also in finding and helping us find the funding. So I think we should check with her. I mean, we shouldn't speak for her. I think we should let her speak for herself as to whether this meets with her expectations. That's all.
Okay, very good. Are there any other comments from other commissioners? Okay, I know that this report under the, I say the leadership of Chief Gutierrez, because he's been really kind of keep the pieces together. There are many things that are great in the report, and it highlights a lot of greatness. Doesn't always have to be a strength. It could also be a weakness. But it points out things that we need to do, or that we've already done, or that we're doing. And I was really happy that so many people were able to participate in the process. I wish more had. But as many people have already said, many commissioners, implementation is the key to what we get. We've had a lot of reports since I've been on the commission, and we've always kind of cherry-picked, I call it, picked out certain things that we did. I remember the one report we had, and the bureaus was really a great idea, Chief. I like that. And it came out of one of those reports. That was a good thing that happened there. But when this particular report is put together and we are trying to implement it, I would like to see the commission more involved in a discussion about the implementation and the priorities within the report, so that we have input into it. People think this commission has a lot of force, but they don't realize there really isn't as much force here as they think. But I would like for us to be able to work on this particular project because it's so important to the future of this department, I believe, that we do it. And I would really like to see if the commissioners, if the chief could pull together a group. I mean, let's just have a working, talking discussion about the report and what we think should come out of it and the priorities. Nothing is binding on anyone, of course, but, it's great, I think, to hear from people and to have the commissioners have some input into the implementation of this department that they so-called run are in charge of. But I would really, and I think that the chief is that person who could do this. Because after work, I've worked with him enough. I didn't just start working with the chief. I've worked with him way before. So I would like to see us have more input into this. And not that I like meetings, but I just think you can't get anywhere unless you do meet and talk. And it's really, really important that we do this. So I was just, after watching the Deloitte process, I think meeting and talking and working on and prioritizing some issues within this report, as just so that the chief knows what the commission thinks, and then so that the commission knows where the chief stands. And we're not in, we'll have to talk about whether it has to be a public meeting of can we do it, just do it, and make a report out as a closed session meeting. But it's something that we need to work on. And I would be so excited and happy for us to do this, because all of this is bringing us all together. When the firefighters see that the commission and the department are working together, they then feel that something else, there's some change. And that's what I really want. I want to bring this department together to see change. We have the components. We just have to go accept change. That's all there is to it. And I think that with the mayor, and that's an interesting, Commissioner Barr said, it's political. It is political. Whoever the next mayor is, we got to make sure they understand this program needs to continue, and we need their support, whoever that person is, because that has been a real key for this fire department. When Mayor Garcetti got elected, things really changed for the fire department. And so we want to continue that. And so we do have to work on that also. How do we make sure that we continue and put in place a program that is here when we're gone? Because many of us will be gone in the next year or so. So, and you don't want all the work that the department has done to just fall by the wayside. We really want it to be institutionalized so that it makes changes. Thank you very much. Now, thank you very much, Chief Gutierrez. That was a great report, great discussion. And is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we receive and file BFC 21-126. Ms. Gomez, will you do a roll call, please? You probably thought we forgot you were there. That's
I had to unmute myself. Pardon me. Woods Gray.
Aye.
Babcock.
Yes.
Hara.
Aye.
Ibarra.
Yes.
Ninberg.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And happy holidays, Chief Gutierrez. The next report is B, item 6B, and that is going to be done by Chief Everett. Welcome, Chief Everett.
Morning, Madam President, Commissioners, Linda and Leticia.
Good morning.
Everett, Deputy Chief, and I serve as the Chief of Staff. President Woods Gray asked me to give a verbal kind of a snapshot in time of our situation with our mandated vaccination numbers, and as well as kind of an overview of the process that we will be undertaking and that we already have started. So just for some context on some of these numbers, the total number of department employees that we have is 3,728. Of that, 3,153 members are fully vaccinated. So that's a total of just over 84%, 84.5%. From that number, we have 379 members that are not vaccinated. And in addition to that, the other option that exists is that members can file for an exemption or request an exemption under religious or medical needs. And so they're within the ordinance in doing so. So we have 465 members that have filed for medical or religious exemptions, which is in accordance with the ordinance. Interestingly, of that number, 126 are already fully vaccinated, which leaves us with 339 members that are not fully vaccinated, but they've requested an exemption to be considered. So as the exemptions are being considered by the city and the departments, we will work through that process with the personnel department. We've already started that endeavor. And we have 34 members that have requested medical exemptions, and we have 259 that have requested religious exemptions, and we have 46 members that have requested both medical and religious exemptions. So those requests will be evaluated in the city's process, and will be part of that process as well, obviously. Interestingly, though, when you look at those numbers, the 3,153 fully vaccinated members and the 339 members that have requested an exemption, that leaves us with 3,492 members that are actually in compliance with the ordinance. That's a total of 93.67% of our membership is actually compliant in terms of the ordinance parameters. So So we do have very high compliance rates. Even our fully vaccinated numbers of just under 85% is not where we want to be completely, but a large majority of our department is compliant to the ordinance and compliant to being fully vaccinated. So as we walk through the process, those are some of the numbers. And as we walk through the process of what do we do with the people that are not compliant? So the department's process, and actually the recommendations that came through personnel department, the city attorney's office, and others, is we provided notice to our members to make sure they're aware of what the requirements of the ordinance were, what the dates were. And so those notifications went out. The notifications went out to 322 members. Of that, 85 of them became compliant before the department was required to take action and put them off duty. So we had compliance there. Of the remaining 237 members, those members were placed off duty. Now, in the time that they were placed off duty, 159 of those members became compliant and returned to duty, which leaves us as of this morning with 78 members that are off duty right now. So 78 out of our department membership remain at home, and we are processing through the termination process. The termination process will follow what the charter, the Bill of Rights, and the MOU require. The process includes notification of the member, the giving of the member to a Skelly process. So basically, the first half Skelly, which is the information provided to the member that's in question to bring to their Skelly hearing, which is the charges against them that the department is saying that you're not meeting a condition of employment. Excuse me. And so then that member will be scheduled for a Skelly hearing or a pre-deprivation hearing. Following that hearing, the hearing officer will provide recommendations for final determination or final recommendations. And that second part of the Skelly packet will be served upon the member as well. And that recommendation, if the recommendation goes through, it would be to the members not meeting a condition of employment, and that recommendation could be that they need to be terminated and they go to a board of rights. And so we follow that charter process as we go through, and then we would pick the board of rights and we would conduct the board of rights, and that consists of the 3 chief officers that preside. And so that's all within Charter 1060, and so we're working through that process right now. We've trained some of additional hearing officers for Skelly hearings in anticipation of having to do more Skellys than we usually do, which is reasonable to assume. And so we're moving forward in that process as we speak. Happy to answer any questions. I am a little limited. There is current litigation going on, so I can answer what I can answer. But I'll open it up to any of the commissioners if you have any questions about the numbers.
Can you talk about the people who are applying for the waiver, not the waiver, the exemptions, and what their process is?
Yes, ma'am. So there's some, basically the departments have been asked to do an initial intake of those requested exemptions. So there's a committee that looks at those. Some of them will conduct interviews depending on what the exemption request is for. Those recommendations on that first glance will go to the personnel department. The personnel department has a group of people that evaluate these exemptions, and depending on what the expertise is, if it's a religious exemption request or a medical exemption request, they will go to the personnel department and come back with a decision. If the member wants to appeal that decision, then those appeals will come back to each of the departments, and the general manager would be tasked with providing an answer to that appeal. There's a couple of ways to look at it. Depending on, it enters into a reasonable accommodation process, which involves an interactive process where you have an interactive dialogue with the member to determine what their restrictions are and to determine what the departments can reasonably accommodate within city employment. So depending on what their job is, and if they're medical exemption, let's say they have a medical exemption that's approved, then the department would need to find a place that we can reasonably accommodate somebody who is not vaccinated. So whatever those restrictions look like at the end of the whole process, that's when the evaluation process would come into play. If members are denied an exemption and they've exhausted their appeals and everything, it's just they're denied, there is a time span at the end of that process to go ahead and be compliant prior to going into the other process.
Okay, very good. Commissioners, are there any questions or concerns for the chief?
Yes. So for so there was a report. I don't know where I read it. I think it was in the paper that it was 105 people who were on unpaid leave because they hadn't complied with the vaccination requirement or applied for an exemption. Is that number now 78? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. So that number changes basically hourly. And we have members that are currently on the list of non-compliance that end up making themselves compliant or are able to return to duty. So nightly, members of our department will notify those chain of commands that, hey, this person can come back to work as of tomorrow morning. And that, like I say, we monitor that list basically all day to make sure that we're scrubbing the list correctly and we're putting the right people back to work when it's appropriate. And that list does change quite a bit. We do have some other members that are pending notification, so that number will change in the coming weeks, I'm assuming. I think it just depends because we had the deadline last Saturday, and prior to the deadline, the number was up above 100. And then following the deadline, the number is now below 100. So it just it changes hourly. That's why the information I gave you this morning is a snapshot taken this morning at about 0800.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Are there other questions from other commissioners? Comments, questions, concerns? Commissioner Ninberg.
Yes. Thank you for this. I know that this has been very difficult, and of course, I couldn't agree more that the mandate was to provide safety, not to terminate people. This is but also, especially with this Omicron variant coming up, and we're learning more, it is terrifying how contagious it is. So I want to ask, you mentioned the numbers, but can you tell me of the 3,728 members? Okay, you said 3,153 are vaccinated, but how many are sworn versus civilian on that? So the 339 that are not fully vaccinated that requested medical or religious or both exemptions, how many are sworn?
So
and how many are civilian?
Right. So we have those numbers in the data, but the numbers I provided you are both civilian and sworn combined. I don't have them separated in my notes in front of me right now. But I can say that I believe everyone, well, I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but the majority of people that we have on our list, I believe, are sworn.
Okay.
And the majority of people that are at home right now are sworn as well. I just don't have the numbers currently in front of me, but we track both.
Okay, that would be great if we could get the numbers of civilian versus sworn, because the 338 that are not fully vaccinated and have requested exemptions, what are they off duty right now?
If they've requested an exemption, they're not off duty. They're within the ordinance.
Okay, so they're just getting tested.
Correct.
Twice a week.
Correct.
Okay. And do you know how they assess the religious exemption? Because there's
specific criteria that's been provided. There's it's a three-pronged or four-pronged approach to determining whether or not it's a sincerely believed or sincerely a sincere belief, I guess, is the term. But there's basically a 3 or 4 prong approach that the personnel department is implementing, and and so that's their process.
Do you have that? Like, is it?
I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen it, and I can get it to you.
Okay, I think especially, and are there? So another question: have the Omicron? So with this Omicron variant, are we going to start testing everybody? Because it seems like there's a lot of breakthrough cases. I know I'm getting tested all the time now. I know people, they might not experience severe COVID, but they could be, I mean, obviously if you're vaccinated, it's less transmissible, but it's still transmissible. So are we planning on doing that?
At this time, we haven't received any direction for any additional testing. Testing is available for our membership at Medical Services Division. We are wrapping up operations at COVID Division, but we haven't received any additional direction for additional required testing. So if that direction was to come, then we would adjust and make it happen. But at this time, we haven't heard anything about that.
Okay. And fully vaccinated, that means with the booster?
Fully vaccinated right now is, I don't think includes the booster yet. It's 14 days past the last shot. If it's a 2-shot phase, it's 14 days after that second shot. If it's a J&J, it's 14 days past that shot. But Chief, I'm not aware if the booster has been included in fully vaccinated. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, the booster is in the vaccine ordinance language. So whenever, if and when it's mandated, our members would be forced or required to comply with a booster.
Okay, but it's not in there now?
Well, the decision to have people get the booster has not been made yet.
Okay, so that mandate hasn't gone through. Okay. Okay. And are there, like, let's say, just hypothetically, that a member has presented or has requested a medical or religious exemption under false pretense. Are there consequences for that? Or no?
Well, I think
if that's determined,
the first thing would you have to prove it was under false consequences or circumstances. And
right.
I think everyone has the right to file for that, and whether or not they're approved or denied, it would be hard pressed to say they did so under false pretenses. We would have to see the circumstance. Hypothetically, it depends on the nature of how the member divulges that it was under false pretenses. I think that might be a tough case to prove. We do have rules and regulations against false reporting, but it would depend on the circumstance.
Okay. I just wondering because it's, if it has a negative impact on the department, if there are consequences for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Commissioner Ibarra, I see your hand.
Oh, yeah. So I know that there was, because it's public, there was a hearing yesterday for one of the Freedom for Firefighters, and the tentative was to deny their preliminary injunction. So that means they continue to be unpaid. Is that correct? So there's right now, we're not going to, as of now, unless the tentative changes, they're going to continue to not be paid. So that I think is an incentive for anybody who's still taking part in those actions to, get vaccinated and get back, on the job and get paid. Because I think that's really important. And I think the standard that personnel department is using is not special to fire department, right? It's throughout the city. That's the same standard. So everybody who's applying for an exemption, a religious exemption, is going to get the same standard, which is sincerely held religious belief, and they're either going to believe it or not. The falsity, I think, is like a higher level in the law. I mean, that's just a well-known thing. So it's pretty high standard to meet. But whether it's sincerely held, I think, is just a different standard. I don't know how people adjudicate that, and I don't actually think anybody does, because it's kind of an uncharted area of the law. But I just want to say, like, those two things seem different to me. It's whether somebody has a sincerely held religious belief is different than whether it's actually false. So we'll see how that works out. It's not going to be special to fire. It's going to be for everybody. All right, thanks.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. It's citywide. To your first point, the city attorney is handling the lawsuit issues. I did hear that on the news this morning that it was denied. We have not received any further instructions from the city attorney's office, so we're moving forward in our current process.
And do you have a timeline for processing? Do they know what the timeline is going to be for processing? This is a lot of exemptions. I mean, this is just fire. If personnel's doing it, PD has, I think, 3 times as many. Do you know what the time frame is for this?
No, they're working through it right now, but it's hard to estimate because there are a number of them citywide. So it'd be tough to speculate on how long it'll take. I do know the process has started, and we've initiated our initial intake that we were required to do. So I would agree with you. It's going to be a process that's going to take a while, I believe.
And they haven't determined any yet, have they? Substantiated any?
Not that I'm aware of from our department.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner, I did see your hand, but I got momentarily distracted. Thank you for raising your hand. Commissioner Ibarra, do you have another comment?
No, that's sorry.
No, that was, okay. Okay, very good. Are there other comments or concerns about the what's happening with the COVID-19 process as far as the I think there's going to be the chief is going to be very busy once they go through those exemptions, and his department he may have to bring back some retired firefighters to assist him because that's otherwise it will take it's going to take a long time, and we don't want it to take a long time. So we need to work that out. But okay, very good. I think that we've probably exhausted that subject. And so do we need to, there's no city attorney, when there's no action on this particular item?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. So then we will move along to the next item. I would just like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year if you celebrate. I know some people have already celebrated Hanukkah, and there will be other celebrations, Los Posadas and Kwanzaa and all other kind of things coming up. But so whatever you celebrate, enjoy it. It is a season of enjoyment. Do it safely, and we hope to see everyone at our next meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and second to adjourn the meeting. Ms. Gomez.
Woods Gray.
Aye.
Thank you. Babcock.
Yes.
Hara.
Aye.
Ibarra.
Yes.
And Ninberg.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yes, happy holidays.